The fuck happened to you?
A lot.
Did you get the coke?
A little. The bear ate most of it.
What?
The bear. It fucking did cocaine. A bear did cocaine, Dad.
Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Gold. I'm your host, Daniela Taplin-Lundberg, and I'm here once again with my right-hand woman, Becca Camerata. How are you, Bex?
I'm great. How are you, Daniela?
Good. I'm so excited to jump into today's episode because we're interviewing the great actress and filmmaker and producer Elizabeth Banks, who also happens to be one of my dear friends. And we're going to dive into the making of Cocaine Bear, which some people don't realize that she directed.
Not surprised by that.
Yes, it's a real departure for her. So I'm very excited to hear the process, how she got involved, why she chose this completely bizarre movie to throw her directing chops behind, and hear some of the behind the scenes. So let's get going. Elizabeth Banks, Banksy, my love.
Hi.
I don't know if you remember the drill. We're going to talk about Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear today. Okay, yeah.
I'm going to admit to you, and I have already admitted this to you, it took me a minute to watch it. Like I was very busy at the time. I wanted to give it its proper due. So I bought it on iTunes, just so you know.
Okay.
I fucking loved it. I loved it.
Did you watch it alone or with people? Because I find it really needed to be watched with other people.
Okay, well, I watched it alone and I loved it.
Okay.
It was just like the tone you struck between humor and drama and horror. I don't know how you did it.
That was the number one thing that I loved about it when I read it.
Yeah.
And it's the thing I'm most proud of as a director, filmmaker, is tone. I mean, I find that is what I do the best.
Yes.
That's what I understand the most.
So start from the beginning, because Cocaine Bear was kind of a hot script. It was sort of like this weird script that people were talking about.
I had not heard about it.
Okay.
Were you had you read it?
No,
had you heard about it?
No, but I'd heard about it. And like every time I went into a meeting when you were in production, A24 would be like, we would have done Cocaine Bear. Like it was that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will say, unlike the other things that I've made as a director, this was a great script that just came across my desk, right? And was done in the most traditional way, which is my agent sent me a script and said, I think you will dig this.
Rarely happens that way.
Rarely. I mean, I love you, agents, but that rarely happens, you know? Sometimes they'll send me a great script like, here's just an FYI.
Right.
I mean, this has already been taken by someone, but maybe you'd work with this person in the future. I'm like, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Way to get me in on the ground floor, guys. So you normally, as a producer, and you know this very well, you're developing something from the seed of the idea,
right?
The writer, and then the second writer, and the next year, and you're trying to set it up and get people paid to write and develop and all that. This was a script that was pretty great. So
clean, like was there anyone attached to it?
Jimmy Warden wrote the script. Jimmy Warden worked for McG for years.
Sure.
And he met Brian Duffield, who's a big writer, producer / now director as well. I believe it was on the set of The Babysitter, which was a Blacklist script that Brian Duffield wrote. I don't know if you ever read that script. Yeah. Also super cool in this like mixed genre that McG directed. So Jimmy and Brian met on that and became friendly. And Jimmy was a aspiring writer and seen an article.
Okay.
I believe it was an article about the real Cocaine Bear, and we'll get to that.
Okay.
The fact that it's based on a true story.
Which is wild.
Had seen an article and I've seen the text chain, sent the text to Brian Duffield saying, do you think this would make a fun movie? Do you want to write it together or something like that? And Brian said, it sounds like a great, insane movie. Go for it.
Just you.
Just like,
go for it.
Just like, I'm busy. Like
the Hollywood brush off.
But like gave him the you should, it sounds hilarious.
Yeah.
So Brian Duffield and Jimmy kind of, developed this.
Okay.
And they brought it to Lord and Miller. So Lord and Miller have might get another Oscar this year for Spider-Verse, but they
Right.
have some Oscars. They mostly do these amazing animated movies, but one of which is the Lego movie.
Yes.
I worked with them on the Lego movie.
Of course, yes.
I've known them for years. So they were taught, I don't know if they like had, there was no like option
Formal,
particularly.
yeah.
It was not that formal yet,
Yeah.
but they were coming on. They
Okay.
were sort of represented as like the guys who
We're going to produce it.
were going to produce it.
Okay.
And they were in the midst of moving their deal to Universal, where my husband and I, Max, have our deal, Brownstone Productions. Our production company is also at Universal. And so the pitch from the agency was, hey, I mean, you know all these guys. They know you. Let's give them a call. If you like it, let's see if Universal, wants to do something. It turns out, because nothing's actually clean. I
Sure.
think they were developing it with some other guys. In fact, I know that they were developing it with some other guys.
Like other directors?
Yeah, I think it's a team. I'm actually, I probably in the back of my mind know who they are.
Okay.
And they were playing around again with tone, which was really hard for this.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was very like horror based. Apparently, I really can't speak to this because I didn't ever see or hear their take. But, and like a down and dirty version.
Okay.
And I think everybody involved was like, is that the right idea? Like they weren't, it was not really clear. And
so the script existed.
script existed.
And then in theory,
and
like-
things were happening,
okay.
but it wasn't coalescing.
Okay. Yeah,
Nothing
yeah.
was actually
Yeah.
really going on. And nobody was saying, we'll put up the money for this.
Okay.
Was kind of the vibe. When Liz Banks made a call and was like, I really like this. What do you guys think? What if I got involved?
Were you directly like, I want to direct this?
Yeah.
Okay.
From jump. I was like,
By
I
the
could see
way,
myself directing this
I'm
movie.
going to toot your horn a little bit, which is like, you're being courted by quite a few people to direct many, many things. And so you kind of were like, no, this is the thing. Like, this is my next thing.
It was like April in the pandemic.
Okay.
So nothing was really happening other than the world was fully falling apart around us. Okay.
It's pretty dark.
So it was dark. And I was looking for something where it was like I could lose myself in something just fully entertaining.
Yeah.
For entertainment's sake. I think also it was a reaction to not to making Charlie's Angels, which I loved making and I'm proud of the movie and the experience of making it, but to the labeling of that movie as like some sort of like feminist manifesto, as if I am like only in the business to make these women's, which let me be clear, I love telling women's stories and I love agency for female characters, and I am someone who really prides myself on finding and telling those stories. And Charlie's Angels certainly was that, but it was not all that it was.
Totally.
And I really felt like I was being pigeonholed a little bit as a filmmaker into like when you say you're getting, I know all these offers, it's like it's a lot of like rom-com-y
babe stories.
Babes that are, and that's not, I like a more, I don't know what the word would be, but maybe more muscular version of storytelling. And I also am trying to sort of forge my own path in that way of, there are a lot of women telling great women's stories. And I also think there are women that tell more muscular, interesting stories. Like, I just want to be able to play on a really big playing field.
Don't put me in a box.
Don't put me in a box. So I guess my point is I was just simply looking for what would surprise people next.
Yeah.
And what will I grow doing? And so finding something that when I read it, I knew tonally was really interesting.
Like you had a gut. You were like, I know how to do this.
And also was going to require incredible CGI.
Which you'd never really done before.
Yeah. I mean, obviously every movie now has visual effects in it, but I had not done, like, there's going to be the main character of this movie
It's a goddamn bear.
is a CGI bear that needs to be created from scratch.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's never going to be on set. You know what I mean? There, and we knew we weren't going to make, I mean, we didn't know at the beginning, this is part of the production process, but, was just like, well, that's a fun problem to solve. that I haven't really had to delve into solving a problem like this before.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you make a movie where the lead character, the titular character, is going to be completely computer generated? That intrigued me a lot too. So I loved when I read the script, I just loved the vibe of it. I love the characters. I loved that it was based on a real story. Of course, I went on a deep dive into the internet of like, who's the cocaine bear?
I saw you take a picture next to the actual cocaine bear.
Well, that's the bear that we created for the movie is that bear.
Okay.
There is a taxidermied cocaine bear in Kentucky that our production designer went and visited.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I definitely have posted that photo.
Yeah.
There's some controversy now, though, around that original, whether that is the actual taxidermied bear. There is, we of course, there was like a documentary done on Peacock about this whole story now as well. And in that deep dive, the sort of chain of events became like slightly murkier as to whether or not that is the taxidermied bear. Because there was some stories of people who were like on the ground when the bear was found, by the way, surrounded by bags of empty bags of cocaine that were clearly eaten by animals and a dead bear. That the bear was sort of deteriorated in a way that maybe that's not the taxidermy bear.
I could buy that.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Could be the bear. And I'm not throwing shade because I don't know. But the answer is it's not definitively the bear.
I love that you're filling in the all the story though.
And by the way, your listeners should go deep dive on this. There's some great podcasts about it.
Yeah.
That really shed light for us too. And then the real story of Andrew Thornton, who was the drug dealer that was found dead as well.
Who parachuted
out of the plane. Yes.
Okay.
His whole MO was fascinating.
Okay.
And so, and none of that was really in the original script. So the original script, when I read the script, the opening scene was the kids finding the cocaine and then the bear showing up. And I was like, I think we need more. I want to switch this up. I'm like, so that was the development that started once I got involved.
So when you raised your hand, were they like, yeah, let's go? Or did it require a little convincing?
It was like, I raised my hand and it was like, let's see, then we have to pair deal. We're all at Universal.
Sure.
We have to then go to Universal because the hope is you guys are, Lord Miller are there and we're there. And let's hope Donna Langley and wants to make this crazy movie.
It's not obvious.
It's not that obvious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's certainly not obvious for me either as a filmmaker. So it was like, let's now we have to make those phone calls. So the guys were like excited.
Okay.
But also I think we all were like, are they going to let us?
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, as with everything, I've been around long enough that I was like, am I going to have the resources to do it right? Because I don't want to.
Yes.
I just sort of started to have some boxes that needed to be checked in order to really move forward. Number one was, what are the resources for this CGI bear? What does it actually cost to make a photorealistic, like Nat Geo documentary level bear so that you don't get taken out of the movie by like, a Scooby-Doo version of the bear?
Totally.
And then like a big question for me was marketing and can we actually call it Cocaine Bear? Because I really felt that was a big selling point. It was
100%.
what I just loved, and then you see where the poster got to and like how we talked about it and the true story and all that. And I just wanted to know, are these assets to the studio or are these things that we're never going to be able to talk about because you can't put cocaine in a movie?
Yeah.
Title.
Yeah.
And really what this came from my experience working on Zack and Miri Make a Porno and Kevin Smith fighting to keep porno in the title. And then, you can't actually advertise that title. You can't talk about it in radio ads. Like, there were all these restrictions suddenly on who could put it out and red band trailer versus green band trailer. It was just all over. It was really hard to sell that movie with that title.
Brilliant.
So I had that experience of like a word in the title that doesn't.
It's the hook, but you're not allowed to use it.
You're not allowed to. So I didn't want to go down that road again.
Okay.
So we got with the marketing people at Universal, Michael Moses especially, who, we've had great success selling Pitch Perfect movies with. And he was like, he said, I'm going to do the research. Like, I'm going to dig in. Like, I'm not just going to see if we can, how will it restrict us, if at all? And what will the MPAA say? Like, I was like, I don't want to make this whole movie and then find out the MPAA is going to be like, not let us use the title. So we just did all of that upfront sort of work. And at the same time, we're working on the budget for the bear. And the script.
Okay.
Yes. So all of that was happening before there was a green light, before there was a real dive in, let's go.
But this is all during the pandemic.
All during the pandemic.
So you've got some time.
We had time and we were like, what else are we doing? But I also, I don't, it gained traction quickly.
Okay.
Sometimes you get into these development, the development business and you're working on budgeting and you're working on stuff, this was like, no, but let's get a proper line producer. Like, let's actually spend money on the research. Let's the studio they were into it.
So that's promising.
So it was really promising. And then it was really fun to talk to the different VFX companies about how they would do a bear and investigating like the Bear and the Revenant and how did they do it? And what was, what were all the steps and who already has assets of animals and bears walking and things like that. And what looks great on camera and what were we not that interested in, because my biggest fear and the biggest risk to me, I felt as a filmmaker, was a bear.
Totally.
And I just thought it will
live and die by the bear.
It really was going to live and die by the bear.
Yeah.
If it took you out of the movie or looked janky or wasn't scary. Mm-hmm. And we all felt that way. Lord and Miller, same. Nobody was trying to skimp. We just were like, we just know there's kind of a ceiling to what this movie should cost before we're not all preserving the upside. And so let's all hold hands and make sure we're doing the right version of the movie. So met with a bunch of companies and Weta FX ultimately made the Cocaine Bear. And Weta did Planet of the Apes. It's Peter Jackson's company. They're based in New Zealand. They had an incredible sense of humor about it right away. They showed us in very fun references where there was a great realism and also a sense of fun. And they just got the tone. And just the pitches that they had right away from jump were super fun. Some people, when we were doing presentations, they sort of latched on to like, the bear walking or climbing or, physicality of the bear, what its roar was going to be like, whatever. And I think Weta's first thing was the bear sneezing the cocaine. Oh. Right? Like the achoo and cocaine flying at the camera.
So good.
I was like,
and you as a filmmaker, you get it.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
I need to see like, it's not just the bear. I actually also do need to see, does it look like it's snowing or does it look like cocaine?
Yeah.
Because that layer, the coke layer, as it were, on top of, by the way, like wet blood. I mean, people think this is an easy ask. Like asking somebody to come up with a dry bear that gets wet, grizzled blood that has to look the correct color of crimson and the correct consistency, and then layer on some cocaine and then layer on like a severed leg in its mouth. We have to have the right ideas here. These are lots of layers and they all have to be realistic and they all have to be fun. So frankly, getting them on board and feeling the confidence that they got it and wanted the same thing that we all wanted, that is what really led us to the green light.
Millions of dollars worth of cocaine dropped from the sky early today onto a driveway in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Do you think my dad has ever done cocaine? Your dad has definitely done cocaine.
Then we were thinking we were going to go to Australia because at the time they had no COVID. You have to remember, like Australia was had incredible protocols. You couldn't get in and out of the country.
Right.
Once you were there, you were there. If you had COVID, you were locked away in a hotel. I mean, they were doing strict protocols. And we had friends making films there that were living no masks. Oh my God, we want that.
Yeah.
We got on a call, or like a Zoom with the Weta people in New Zealand. And we were all in our little squares, alone and masked or whatever. And they were sitting around a table of bagels, just like eating together. And we were like, wait, oh my God, It's like it's not.
You can see
they
each other's
don't-
faces.
Like they're just living their lives, eating bagels
my
around a
God.
table together in the same office. Like it just hadn't happened.
Oh my God.
So there was a lot of excitement around the idea of going to Australia or New Zealand to make the movie, where they, had these really strict protocols. So we were kind of operating like that's what we were going to do.
And by the way, were they requiring any, like, did they have cast requirements, or were they just greenlighting you and
was
just
based
like,
on
this,
us.
we're going on this IP and like you,
The
and that's it?
producers,
Yeah, okay.
Lord Miller, me, and the bear.
Love it.
And just
Yeah.
knowing like fun people get involved, but like that
That's not the hook. That's
we
not-
knew the
yeah.
poster was going to have the bear on
Yeah,
it. You know what I mean?
Right. Totally.
So yes, we were not waiting for some A-list star to sign on.
Love it.
But Australia was really interesting because, so then we start doing the research. I bring on my production designer, Aaron Hay, who I've worked with a couple times. And I tell him we're thinking about Australia. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, oh, you're not excited? And he's like, well, different. He's been around the block. He knows.
Right.
He's like, we're doing Australia for Georgia.
Not a lot of woods.
There's just no deciduous trees. They're all, as they call them, eucalypts, which are essentially like based on eucalyptus trees, meaning they have a very different like leafiness. The bark's different. Like everything's kind of different there. So he starts sending me photos of places that we could maybe shoot the movie. And we quickly realized like we're not going where our friends are on like the Gold Coast of Australia. We're like, now we're in Melbourne. We're in the south. We're like, or maybe we're on a mountaintop somewhere where maybe it kind of like if you squint, you're not going to notice their eucalyptus trees.
100%.
And you can't remember like they have koala bears. Like they don't have bears. Okay, they don't have black bears. So suddenly I start seeing photos and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
I'm really having to squint, right?
Yeah.
And then
You're trying to make it work, but it's
trying to
not
make it
gonna
work.
It's
So
not
then
gonna
we
work.
start talking to location people in Australia. And we get on with this one guy who kind of takes us through some locations that, again, and I'm on with the production designer and a couple of the producers and my husband being one of them. And, this guy, Aditya Sood, who works with Lord and Miller and who was great and was really our partner on the whole thing. It's like Max and him really did, so much of it. The two of them. And we're just laughing. It's like, well, this guy gets on and he goes, if you have it, look, all you need is $1 million in greens. I'm like, just $1 million in greens. So
Tell
if you've
us-
ever made a
tell us,
movie, the
loyal
greens
listeners.
department is the department that's responsible for bringing in literal greens, grass, trees,
grass, flowers.
bushes, flowers,
Yeah.
If you're shooting in the middle of the winter, but you need a rose garden, like it's all fake roses. Like they're bringing this all in. They're going to greenhouses and they're bringing stuff. They're planting trees or they're bringing them in their, in big giant buckets and they're covering the base of them and all that. Right. And, every movie has a greens budget. It's usually, frankly, to like cover up like a dumpster in the background of an alley or something. You're putting a nice looking bush instead, Nancy Meyers movies have a lot in the greens budget. Okay. When you're looking out the window, those are real. She's not faking that shit. Okay. Lots of people just fake that nowadays. So the greens budget is that in like maybe you have a couple $100,000 in a greens budget. Maybe. That's on a nice movie.
Yeah.
$1 million in greens out of the production budget is insane. That was never going to happen. So it was like comments that where we just started going like, guys, come on, we're not doing it. Are we really going to Australia? And the nail in the coffin in Australia, of course, was by the time that we were going to make the movie, which was basically about a year after. I read the script in April. So by the time we do all the research and we get everything going, we get this sort of like, okay, it's going to happen. Let's find a start date. The start date comes around to like June, July, summer, basically. Well, I don't know if you know how Australia and New Zealand work, but they're in a different hemisphere and our summer is their winter. So when you start to get like, we're going to make the movie in June, you're like all of the location photos I'd looked at from Australia
were inaccurate.
We're going to be covered in snow. It was not going to be summery Georgia. And, we were trying to stick with the real story of this movie, this is actually a crazy date, but Andrew Thornton jumped out of the plane on September 11th, 1980, whatever.
No.
So, it had to be like late summer, early September is the real story.
Right.
And also bears are asleep in the winter. So it definitely was not going to be winter. So all of a sudden.
So then where?
So we start looking around some more, and we had another friend who was making the Enchanted sequel, Disenchanted, for Disney Plus in Ireland.
Yeah.
And said like, it's pretty great and it looks exactly like, and it'll be summer and it really looks like Georgia. And, what are you guys thinking about Ireland? And we were not. We were honestly looking at we were looking at real Georgia.
Yeah.
But if you can believe it, once we looked at Ireland, the incentive was great. It looked perfect. We found some great locations that we liked, virtually. Because, remember, we weren't doing... It's the other thing, because of COVID, we couldn't really go
scouting.
scout. No, it was all had to be done like on Zooms and people doing like FaceTiming me from the woods and things, location people in those areas telling us stuff. And then also being able to look at other movies that had shot in those places and going, okay, this is what the woods look like.
Yeah.
So, they shoot the TV show Vikings in Ireland, in the woods where we were talking about shooting, and it looked pretty great. So things like that was how we were able to do the scout.
Talk me through your casting process, because it's like filled with really people you love.
The casting process was interesting because people read the script. And again, I think this is almost a bias of me getting involved. Everyone read the script and thought that Sari, who's played by Kerry Russell, was the lead of the movie. Like, oh, it's her story. The mom who's finding her daughter is going to be the heart of the movie. And that's going to be the story that we tell. And to be honest, that was not how I read it. I read it really as an ensemble first. Yes. But I also just thought, I love that character, but her journey is like, I need to go find my daughter in the woods and connect with her. And then she finds her daughter in the woods and they all survive. I was like, this is all giving it away. But I didn't think there was as big of as an actor myself, I knew that was a pretty straight road to walk, not a big character journey.
Yeah.
There's no big turn for this character. And they're pretty, she's kind of the straight man of a piece that's very wild and very important as an anchor for the movie, but was not for me the story of the script. And so there were a lot of development notes about we need to, we got to bust, merely... make this into something. And I'm just going as an actor, I read a lot of scripts. I get offered a lot of parts. And I'm like, it's kind of, I don't know if this is the one. So they're let's get Charlize Theron. Let's get Emily Blunt. Let's get Reese Witherspoon, and you're like, I love it, of course.
Sure.
But I know in my heart of hearts that this is an ensemble. And if we blow all the budge, on that, and also puts a lot of pressure on the movie. And it also then shines a real light on that character story, which also in my gut was not really the DNA of the movie. Suddenly I was like, guys, I don't know if, the bear plus Jennifer Aniston is the right idea. Again, you love all these people, but you've got to have the right scope and scale. So I just got nervous about making too many of those overtures to actresses and not really as a filmmaker being able to justify to them no, I'm going to rewrite your part. It's going to get really interesting. It's I actually like her story a lot and need that anchor in the movie. And I love the wildness of, for instance, the character played by Margot Martindale, which is in the script is named Ranger Liz. And I love the kids in the movie. And I really hooked into the journey that Alden Ehrenreich's character is on. Because his character, Eddie, is mourning his deceased wife who's just died of cancer. This crazy backstory. Yeah. And he is also a drug dealer who's trying to make good, get out of the family business, who's being, coerced back in by his father, who also I thought would be a great, amazing cameo. We end up getting Ray Liotta in his final role. So just awesome. An incredible,
That was amazing.
And so I just always thought that character, and he gets to be in a buddy comedy with his best friend, David, who gets, his plate. So I just was that to me was sort of more, not that Sari was not super important to the movie, but I just found the emphasis being placed by everybody on that role, I was just kind of sitting back the whole time being like, cool. Like, guys, I'll talk to anybody. And if that's the direction, but can we talk about a bigger list and like some women that I just know will crush in this movie and not take so much attention away from the bear? And we ended up with Kerry Russell, who then had like one of the biggest years of her career with this movie and The Diplomat, and like getting nominated for every award, and just, and obviously like from the Americans. I mean, she's just one of my all-time favorites.
Me too.
And gets the tone and is in on the joke. Like, she's such a good time. When I saw her on the list, I really was like, ooh, can we?
How do you make that happen?
How do I like just let some things play out, but ultimately kind of get to her?
Didn't Matthew do a small part? Like Matthew
So
came in
Matthew Reese is her partner, Carrie's partner, is one of the first people I ever met when I moved to LA. Max and I went to a dinner party in an agent's house, and he was there, and we left the party and we were like, I mean, how much do we love that guy?
That guy.
And so he texted, after I cast Carrie, I got a text from him saying, I read this hilarious script. Can I be Andrew Thornton in the movie?
Shut up.
And Dan, we're in Ireland at this point. We're already, prepping the movie at this point. I'm in Ireland. And because of COVID, again, I kind of wanted like a little bit of a cameo. It's the opening scene of the movie, Andrew Thornton. I wanted people to be like, oh my God, that guy's in this movie, and then kill him like immediately.
I love it.
A minute into it.
Like a Drew Barrymore scream.
That was the high water mark we were trying to hit. But because of COVID, you had to, if you flew to Ireland, you had to like stay in a hotel for 5 days before you come. Like, there just wasn't a scenario where we were going to be able to.
It wasn't easy peasy.
It was not easy peasy. And the studio was like, we can't afford to fly somebody and then to put them up and they do the testing and then they have, get back to the country, and like, where are we getting this person? Like, you can maybe get someone from London.
Okay.
So we were talking about British actors who we could maybe get from London to come over.
Yes.
And then we were literally like, who's already in Ireland? And Disenchanted was shooting there. Jimmy Marsden is an old friend. I've made like 4 movies with Jimmy.
Okay.
He's there. And Patrick Dempsey was there doing Disenchanted.
Oh,
so
my
we
God.
literally were on the phone being like, do you think we could just call Patrick and like on his day off, get him to, like, we were just like, who are, and it was, I'm not kidding you. Like, that conversation was at 10 a.m. and at noon, I got a text from Matthew Reese being like, can I jump in and play Andrew Thornton? And I was like, you have just solved a ginormous problem for me. God. Of course, yes. Because he was already coming over with Carrie and to, hang out because he's Welsh, and then they went and saw his whole family. So like, right. So,
and also he's so funny. And anyways.
Gets it immediately. Like, and sent me a photo, texted me a photo of himself with a mustache next to a photo of the real Andrew Thornton who had a mustache. So he's like, I'm already growing the mustache.
I'm ready.
I'm ready to go. So Matthew Reese, what a gift. Just the greatest
Total
gift. And by the way, not so well known that he takes you out of the movie.
Right.
It's almost an Easter egg for people that love it. And then weirdly became, of course, I ended up also with Margot Martindale in the movie. So weirdly, the entire high level cast of the Americans ended up in the movie.
Sequel.
To be clear, none of that was not the thinking at all.
No. You just happen to love all those people.
I had worked with Margot on Mrs. America, and we were like fast buds. We, totally in love.
Oh,
when I read it, I knew she would hit it out of the park. Every line I could hear in her Texas accent, and I just wanted it for her so badly. And the sort of desperation of like, I could have been at Yellowstone if it weren't for you. I just was like, this is her. And the pining love, I just wanted it.
Now, open it when I say so. Now!
That's a fucking bear.
Where's the duffel?
I gave it to the bear.
You gave it to the bear?
Yeah, the bear. It loves Coke.
So you've got your cast, you're out there. My memory of your time there was that it was cold.
I got seasonal depression in the middle of the summer in Ireland. I also was coming out of COVID and I didn't realize that I actually really needed like summer.
Yeah.
It's beautiful in Ireland. It's stunning and the people were so nice and it was so lovely. But it was the high temp was 72 degrees. And everyone was like, can you believe this heat wave? And I was, I was like, oh, it's kind of cold. Every morning, you'd be in like, you'd be in multiple layers until about 2 in the afternoon when you could like maybe be. And then there were a few days when it was actually pretty hot.
A couple days.
A couple days. I did love it there, but the weather kind of killed me.
And was the shoot itself smooth?
Here's an easy one that actually is kind of no one's fault. We're scouting and I had this whole, I had the 2 kids in the movie watch Stand By Me. Uh-huh. It's a big tonal reference for a lot of what the kids' story is in the movie. That movie, it's the 4 of them. They go on this grand walk through the woods. They find a dead body. It's very emotional it's like them losing their innocence a little bit, right? Like I just love that as a tone. And then there's a ton coming of age. There's also a ton of fun in that movie, and it's Rob Reiner is one of my all-time favorites. So they had watched it, and we had scouted a little bit this like railroad track that I thought, I'm going to have the kids be walking down this track and this is where we're going to find the drugs. And it's going to be like, an homage to Stand By Me. That was my game plan. And we were very far down the road in Ireland with doing that and in talking to the railroad company about using this railroad and how we were going to shoot. And it was next to a river. And it was so beautiful. And like, it was just going to be stunning. They were going to like cross a bridge and then walk down. It's just going to be incredible. It turns out that apparently there had been some unfortunate railroad accidents in Ireland in the not too distant past. And they were actually doing a big campaign to get people to stop walking on the railroad tracks. And they were putting up lots of fences and stuff around the railroad tracks. And they were doing like a PSA, like a true public service announcements, like do not go on the railroad tracks. We were going to have all kinds of safety, we were all going to be in bright orange and we were going to stop the trains and we knew the schedule and they were going to work with us. And we thought it was going to be like no big deal. And basically, because of the PSAs that were happening, they were like, we cannot allow you to, like, we're telling everyone not to go on railroad tracks. Like, we can't allow you to shoot. And then we were like, the movie's set in Georgia. No one will know this is a railroad track.
We don't even want people to know.
In Ireland. We will never tell anybody it was in Ireland, And so there was just this back and forth. And ultimately, the powers that be in the Irish railroad, whatever agencies were like, we can't do it. So, we got so far down the line before it was like, we had to pivot. My grand
Stand By Me homage.
dream of giving homage to Stand By Me never happened. So like, who knew that they had just put out PSAs about not walking on the tracks?
Those are the things that come up. Those are
the kinds of things that come up,
But the shoot, like couple months, like how many days did you shoot?
44 days or something
44
like
days.
That.
Okay.
45 days. And then, of course, post is a very intense process because the bear was never actually on set. So now we have to add into it.
So you're looking at
bear.
dailies. You have no idea what it's going to look like.
Nope.
Your performances are good. And you're getting the tone you want.
Yeah. And we've built a bear head that has the fur that we want. Like it's a great model that Weta has built. Weta Workshop built it. They've sent it to set. We know it's a great lighting reference. So like we have that. And also we have it for the height and we have a bear performer on set.
Like this a human wonderful guy in a bear suit, or like what's the vibe?
He's just in a black, all black, and he's got sort of like a fake head, and he walks on all fours with the special prosthetics.
Okay,
he was actually trained.
Amazing.
Yeah, he did. He worked with like Andy Serkis and like that. All those people. He was a Planet of the Apes like guy, and he actually had done some stunt work with Christian Convery, the kid in the movie, on his television show Sweet Tooth. So Alan Henry is his name, great bear performer. Thank goodness we had him. So he was there to like interact with all the actors.
Great.
And be our like physical reference in the space at all times. So if we were shooting and he was supposed to walk through, in the background, like he was there and he walked through the background.
Did you insist on that because
I always
an actor?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's ways to do it. And like I've acted with a tennis ball and a stick. if you can have an actual person, it's much better,
Yes.
you know, and the real height and the real everything. It's the most, you want the most reality possible for your actors. Here's the other thing. CGI is now to a point where I could have shot this entire movie on a green screen and literally done everything in CGI, every background in CGI, the entire woodscape in CGI, like every bush in CGI. It's not for me. I wanted much more. This is actually what we did was a little even more old school CGI in that everything's real except the one thing that then we have to put into the environment. So moving the bush, you know, running through like the speed, all of that stuff, I wanted references for. And that frankly is for, I have a weak imagination, I guess, when it comes to it. I needed to visualize it. There are people who understand that you can make anything it's almost doing animation. I just wanted reality as much as possible. I want the breeze in the trees, the real bugs, the real bird, you know, the sky. I just was like, I need to see where everyone is and then put the bear into it. I couldn't imagine the bear plus everything else around it also being fake. Yeah. And so for me, that it was just really, as a filmmaker, I just wanted it, needed it. And I think for the actors, that was very appreciated.
So grateful.
Yeah. And even Jesse Tyler Ferguson, like he got up in the tree, 44 feet in the tree.
Oh my
God.
God.
Like 4.5 stories high on wires, hung upside down, built a blood rig that was attached to his leg, pumped blood out of it, really covered him with blood running down his face, his chin, his nose.
Oh my God.
So that he felt like, just so I had that reality even. Because there's no real bear there, but like, let's give him every other sensation that he's going to have has to be real. So he's upside down, blood's running down his head, like all of that had to be real. He had to feel how scary it is to climb that high in a tree. Looking down, seeing it, you know, seeing us on the ground, feeling and I think you can feel.
It felt like very modern Banks, but it also felt like an homage to the movies we grew up with.
It was a lot of 80s
and that just felt like, that does feel scarier. It does feel authentic. You know, like those
I love
movies.
those monster movies.
Totally.
And that's kind of what I was making, you know, the cocaine bear is a bear, but he's also a monster.
Okay, so now we're in the edit. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen whenever you're dealing with the studio, right? How was the editing? Did you like foresee that it was going to be the success that it was?
One of the first scenes, because it was so pivotal to the vision of the movie, was the ambulance sequence. Once I saw that sequence coming together, I kind of knew the movie worked.
Yeah, totally.
That and the opening. When we dragged her backwards away from the camera, screaming to us, I was like, that
we did it.
That's the trailer. And it had the vibe. It was like, it's funny, it's 80s, it's gory. It's kind of like, these are sort of traditional shots. They're like, going away from camera, like the camera pulling back, like all of those things, you know, but we shot that the real actress did that. Like she did it 15 times. I mean, her entire stomach was ripped up. She wouldn't, but she kept being like, I can do better. Like she was unbelievable.
Oh my God.
And we did it with this, you know, Alan Henry, our bear performer stunt guy, was like dragging her and throwing her around. And so all of that was real.
Oh my God.
So just knowing, you know, you could kind of picture like once we turn that guy into a bear, this is going to be crazy.
The thing about it though, Banks, is like, you know, I did a pod with Kathy Conrad talking about Scream.
Yeah.
And the thing with horror, and this feels even harder, is that like until all the elements come together, it is very hard to convince the powers that be that it's...
Well, I had also like, so Lord and Miller, who make animated movies, they have shown a lot of like undone animation to test audiences.
Okay.
They're used to that. I've never done that. I've never had to show an unfinished, you know, like truly unfinished, like there's black and white storyboards cut into a sequence.
Yeah.
I've never had to do that. Or a guy in a black suit. I was like, can we at least put like the animated version of the bear? I don't know how anyone can picture this.
Oh my God.
Do you want to know what's really interesting? When the test audiences first saw, women have stronger imaginations than men and we're very hooked into the characters and the fun of it.
Yes.
And frankly scored it higher than the men did in terms of like visual effects. Like the men were like, well, the visual effects suck.
Yeah.
And you're like, they're not even remotely in the movie at all.
We told you
Whereas
this at the
women
beginning.
were like, I get it. I get where this is going.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
when it's good, it'll be fun.
Right.
Whereas the men were like, nah, I can't see the bear. Who's that guy? Like, it's
Oh
just
my
like very
God.
funny to me to see like how people dealt with it. So I was Lord and Miller kept giving me pep talks about like, don't worry about it,
Right.
And the studio too were pretty, like
They were calm. They
very
they
calm.
knew it was all gonna like.
And
come
this is my
together.
point: is so much of the ambulance is not the bear; it's everyone going like, "Oh my god, it's coming!" And the fun of it, and the speed of it, and the song, and like all of that. That even with just an animatic, it felt so fun.
You knew. Explain to the loyal listeners what an animatic is.
So you can do storyboards, which are sort of 2D versions of like, this is what I think the shots are and how it's going to line up camera wise. And then you can do animatics, which are more like an animation of storyboards.
Right.
And we worked pretty closely with Weta because they also needed to know
Yeah.
where the bear is.
Yeah.
How big is the bear? What are
Yeah.
the backgrounds that
Yeah.
we need? Where's the bear in relation to the background in the ambulance and
Yeah.
when the bear's in the ambulance, like what does the jump look like?
Yeah.
And is the sun in front of it? Like where's the lighting? I mean, is a lot of
Yeah.
technical aspects
Yeah.
to it. So and then we kind of were like, people do like this bear, we might need more bear.
Oh.
So that was another like
People
midway
wanted
through
more bear.
it was like we might need more bear. And so we started sort of figuring out
Okay.
like what we could do to add
That is
sequence,
so,
a little bit more to the sequences.
Yeah. Okay. When did you realize that it was going to become like the sort of cultural
I had no idea actually.
phenomenon?
Meaning, well, when the trailer dropped.
Like the trailer hit right away and people were like going crazy.
I will say, like Pitch Perfect, we knew we were kind of sitting on something that was a real good time. And that if people could just find it, and that if the people who like this kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So you make a Pitch Perfect and you're like, I guess if people who like singing and dancing
Right.
turn out, they're going to have the best time. So people that like kind of like these creature features with they're going to have a good time.
Yes.
It's not going to be for everybody, but the people who like it are going to really like it. We were sitting on that vibe,
Yeah.
we were, but you never know. I mean, especially now with streaming and everything, when Charlie's Angels came out, it was like, oh, I guess this was supposed to be on Netflix. I don't know, I don't know how people watch movies. And if we were coming out, of pandemic and all of that stuff. So it was really about like, do people go see this, or is this going to, maybe this will drop in 3 months on Peacock. I don't know.
There hadn't been an event and it was an original movie, which was the other thing. It's not like based on a Marvel piece of IP.
No IP.
So
just a fun, fresh idea. I also I love ensemble pieces because I find that the audience can see themselves in the characters. Right? Someone in the movie represents them somewhere. And the other thing was that I didn't talk about, but that was a real part of the initial development process was the kids. It felt really important to me that they were 12 and under. And not 14, 15. And we looked at kids that were older. And the problem was this. When you're 14, 15, if you've gone through puberty, you don't need your mom to come get you out of the woods.
Yeah.
You should be able to get out of the woods.
Yeah.
You're in Scream. Like, I didn't want characters who seemed like they were like, DTF. Like, these characters had to be like fully innocent sweeties that kind of skipped school, but then like got caught up in something that was way more than they were bargaining for.
Right.
And I just don't think your mom's coming for you when you're 14, 15 years old. And so it was really important that the kids be true 12 on camera and like, frankly, not have gone through puberty. That was a big question. The studio was like, but then they're going to do cocaine and how are we going to get away with it? And I will say that them trying cocaine is actually one of the biggest set pieces, unexpected set pieces of the movie because it's so tense. People cannot believe that they're really going to do cocaine, that these children are going to do like it's I watching the test audience be like, oh no, oh my God, no, they're not. Like, and it's not about the bear at all. It's literally about
a 12-year-old.
Like a 12-year-old going like, I don't like a teaspoon full of it. And people, and you, by the way, immediately who in the audience has done cocaine and who hasn't. Because you're the people who are like, know that is way too much cocaine. like lose their minds.
They lose it.
They're
They
like,
lose-
whoa, no. Like they're going crazy. Or they're laughing their asses off at how much cocaine. And then people who are like, I don't know how much cocaine.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
too much
That
cocaine.
feels like a lot.
That
That feels like
is
a
that
lot.
a lot?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, that
Totally.
you can kind of cut those people out.
Yeah.
That became a huge,
Wow.
a huge set piece. And it is because they are so young that it works as well as it does.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there was not a lot of pushback, but it was a real question mark as we were
Yeah.
shooting. And it was the only thing the studio said, will you please shoot an alt? I didn't have to shoot an alt of anything in the movie. I didn't have to alt dialogue or anything like that. But they said, like, can we do one where they just don't do the cocaine? But honestly, I mean, we lightly did it. I
mailed
never had
something
to
in.
show it to a single
Yeah,
person.
you were like, I'm not. This is. Not what it's gonna be.
It never
Yeah,
lived
yeah,
to
yeah,
see it a
yeah.
day because it was so fun and obviously
Right.
kind of the premise of the movie. And
Yeah, yeah.
and it's so sweet. No one actually
They're
thinks
total innocence.
they're so innocent.
yeah,
that,
yeah,
like
yeah.
no one
Yeah.
thinks we've like put children through
Right,
you know
right.
cocaine binge.
Fuck! Shit! What the hell? This is as good as the shit I normally do.
He's gonna wake up eventually. Well, that's exactly what I'm afraid of.
She.
What?
The bear is a girl.
Oh, yeah. How do you know that?
Because its vagina is on my ear.
Okay, so we've had great success.
We've had good success. It's a fun movie. More importantly, I think I loved the collaboration with everybody. Lord and Miller were really helpful in the later stage of the process because they had done so much animation. There was a lot about like the bear and like the mechanics.
Yeah.
And pushing the envelope a little bit about how, quote, animated the bear should or shouldn't be, right? And it turned out that actually when we over animated, when we made the bear kind of like high, like too high or like, you know, too humanistic, like it didn't work. It actually was like that. I don't think that's how, I mean, we're all just guessing here.
Right.
But
right.
I don't think that's how a bear would act on you know what I mean? You still had to like keep it kind of a bear.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we, you know, that was an interesting, like we had a lot of conversations about that as we were going forward and, you know, putting Weta through the paces of like what was real and what wasn't real. Like
Yeah.
the bear tweaked out.
So do you feel like this movie has like changed the trajectory for you for directing?
The intention was to surprise people. I still get stopped by people that are like, I had no idea you made that movie. You know, that are like,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that was you.
Yeah.
And that delights me. Just making sure that if I was being put into a box, like I can't be, I'm no longer in it. I still think that the story has amazing women characters and it really does represent what I care about. And the other thing I'll say is I still kind of made the same movie I always make. I actually need to do something. I actually need to make a single POV movie. I've never done that. I make movies with
That's
like
such a-
big casts. I like multiple POV. I want the audience to
Good
see a
point.
lot of different people in the
Yeah.
movie. I like a lot going on.
Yeah.
I like to bring things all together, you know, at certain points. So whether it's the Bellas or the Angels or this entire group of people chasing drugs in the woods, and tone is really important to me. Like what's the line I can walk in terms of, you know, the humor and the tone? I mean, I basically make comedies. I hid a comedy inside of a musical and then I hid a comedy inside of an action movie. And now I've hid a comedy inside of a horror movie. But, you know, we just got nominated for People's Choice Award for Best Comedy.
Yes,
so
girl. Yes.
Cocaine Bear did. So people did realize it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just scary.
Yeah.
It is funny as well. But that's what I'm making. I'm kind of just making comedies because I love comedy, but they don't make comedies anymore.
No. But Banks, it's like you're the ultimate extrovert. This is what you do in your movies and this is what you do in life. You bring people together. You create a party. Mm-hmm. And like
that is what I like to do.
And
bring people together, create a party.
And I think that's what you do in your movies as well. So maybe your next one you go somewhere else, but you're very good at this.
Yeah, I like the idea of a totally different lane, and also, frankly, finding other references. I love movies, and I love all kinds of movies, and so there were a lot of great references for this movie, whether it was Stand By Me or Jurassic Park. And I think you can, when I say those out loud, people go like, "Oh yeah, I see. I actually do see them in it."
Yeah.
And, you know, that was the case with these. I actually think there's a way now to figure out Like I loved Saltburn. Have you seen Saltburn?
Of course I have. Are you kidding?
I love Saltburn. And so I love the like gothic. You feel the references that Emerald Fennell was playing with and then made modern. And I do like the idea of finding something that I can play with and make modern again. So we'll see if that's what I end up doing.
Okay. Banksy, I love you so much.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for letting me chat about it.
Are you kidding?
You should get background references from Lord Miller, and
this is one woman's story.
That's right. This is just how
that's it. That's all I wanted.
How I manifested Cocaine Bear into the world.
I love you so much for doing this. You're the best.
Thanks, Dan.
We did it.
Let's go have a drink.
Let's do it. I love Liz Banks so much. She's just such a force of nature. She's so much fun. She's so inventive. She's so bold. She's sort of my friend who I feel like inspires me to just like be bold and brassy and like take life by the balls because that's what she does. She's so entrepreneurial. It was so fun to hear the process because even though she's like a very, very well established actress, it still is hard for her to get things made, you know, like that movie still took time. It still took convincing. It still, you know, it wasn't the easiest thing in the world. And I was just so deeply impressed with her focus and her vision and the tone she struck with that film. It's not an easy tone. It's a horror comedy. That's something that like is very, very tricky to maintain on the day. And then having to work with like this concept of a VFX bear is also incredibly difficult. And she had never done that before. So I was just really inspired by the whole thing.
Yes.
So Bex, we're gonna head into some trivia now because people seem to really be liking these trivia facts, some of which we don't get to touch upon during the interview. So why don't you kick off?
So these are fun too for us. I think they're just,
I love it.
Some of them are very unexpected. So the name Cocaine Bear was intended to be a temporary working title, but then the producers decided to release it under that name because they couldn't think of anything else.
She touched upon that a little bit.
What else would you call it?
No, exactly. I loved that. I love that fact that she had sort of gotten stuck in former films, sort of having to change. She mentioned Zach and Miri make a porno, and that it was very difficult to stick with the name porno in the title, which was part of the reason people wanted to see it. It was like a sort of, that's the big headline, right? And so if you take the cocaine out of Cocaine Bear, it becomes less of a water cooler moment, right? And so she had learned her lesson, I think, and she made sure that they could call it Cocaine Bear because she knew that was going to get attention, and it certainly did. So I totally believe that fact.
This is a fun one. The film opens with Jane by Jefferson Starship, which is the same song that opened Elizabeth Banks' first film role, Wet Hot American Summer. Or one of her first film roles. Was that her first one?
I wonder if she did that intentionally. It was one of her first film roles.
One of her first film roles.
Yeah. But that's amazing.
That's a very cool fun fact.
Yeah, that is cool.
So we all know, well, maybe everyone doesn't know, but the movie was based on a true story.
Yes.
Right? Or, about this real bear that was
ingested all this cocaine.
On cocaine,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So authorities in New Zealand recently found 3.5 tons of cocaine floating in the ocean, and it spawned memes about a cocaine shark. And for what it's worth, Elizabeth Banks said she'd be up to make that movie.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? That's even harder. That's even harder than a VFX bear. A cocaine shark. Oh my God. I can't imagine having to work in water the whole time. Sounds awful.
Oh my gosh, but
it actually sounds terrible. Yeah.
Liz Banks.
No, Liz Banks can. Okay. I love those. I love these little trivia facts. I'm learning.
So fun.
Our audience is learning. You're learning. It's fantastic. All right, guys. Well, that was another fun one. I mean, Liz Banks has so much energy. I'm all wars out, but love her so much. Love you guys so much. Thank you guys for listening. And Bexy, you do the wrap up.
Please remember to like and subscribe. Follow us at Instagram on Stay Gold Features. Feel free to DM us with any suggestions you have about future guests on the podcast. And remember to always stay gold.
Stay gold, guys.